all they probably do is squeal, but chill. When we start the revolution, when we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal, but chill.
Hotep family, this is RBG Street Scholar, and it is Tuesday, July 10th, 2012, and it's about 1:50 a.m. here in Atlanta. And I am coming on because yesterday we entered a discussion on Facebook regarding Dr. Chancellor Williams' destruction of black civilization that I wanted to provide some follow-up on, because one of the things that I indicated is that Dr. Amos Wilson in his treatise talks about the purpose of that classic work, indicating that it was the prescriptive chapter, the shape of things to come, a master plan, that was the main reason Dr. Williams provided us with that abridged version of his work. Abridged because he had intended for it to be an encyclopedia, but in the process of his work he labored so hard that he lost his eyesight. And so that in Blueprint for Black Power, a moral, political, and economic imperative for the 21st century, Dr. Amos Wilson, as you very well know, his thesis is that economic destiny will determine our biological destiny in the 21st century. If you look at our historical struggle for freedom in America during different periods of time, what freedom was in the minds of our people that were engaged in that struggle have been different. Here we find ourselves in the 21st century, and it is necessary for us to properly define what it is that we are ultimately trying to achieve based on the political, economic reality of America. And what that amounts to is us seeing ourselves and behaving as a nation within a nation and establishing a national political economic program that will enable us to provide food, clothing, shelter, energy, education, and recreation for our people. So what I wanted to do is to talk about some of the things that Dr. Amos Wilson talks about in regards to destruction of black civilization's master plan that Dr. Chancellor Williams offers us. One of the things that I always say is that if no one wrote another book with regards to the African condition until the day that I joined the majority, it would be one book too many. This is not to take anything from writers. What I am saying is that what we do not do is we do not use the books that we presently have to plan, develop, and implement programs based on the information that is in those books. So why would we need another book when we are not maximally using the books that we already have available? And certainly the master plan, the shape of things to come that Dr. Chancellor Williams offers us in chapter 25 of his classic book, is one that we have yet to attempt to actualize. But if we as New Africans or Africans in America are to actualize our tremendous potential power, because that's what we're talking about in this 21st century, the power relationship, then we must organize ourselves to do so in such a way that we implement programs that will prevent us from being subordinate and exploited and victimized by organized alien people and forces. It used to just be the European, but now it's the Chinese, the Japanese, the Vietnamese, the Greek, the freak. Everybody else is benefiting from our lack of political, economic development. And so we have today a number of different aggregates of individuals and isolated groups and reactionary confederacies that are not very well organized, that refer to themselves as organizations, but they lack programs, they lack revolutionary theory, they lack regulatory principles, they lack African-centered consciousness, identification, and socialization. And so this is the reason why we see so much disintegration, progression of disintegration, and annihilation of our people. And so I wanted to take some time and share with you some of the thoughts that Dr. Amos Wilson shares in Blueprint for Black Power regarding Dr. Chancellor Williams' work. I'm doing this for the convenience of those who may not have Blueprint for Black Power. And I'm on page 52 of Blueprint, and the title of that chapter is The Basis of Power, Organization, and ethnic resources. Dr. Wilson starts out on page 52 by saying, Chancellor Williams, in chapter 25 of his classic book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, lays out a detailed race-based plan for organization of African American communities and the benefits such organization can bestow on it. As a sort of preamble to this plan, he discusses some of the things a massive consolidation of unused black power can do. And Dr. Amos Wilson lists 8 things that he sees being laid out in destruction of black civilization by Dr. Williams in his master plan chapter. 1. It can influence American foreign policy and action in regards to crucial matters affecting African nations just as effectively as American Jews can influence this country's relations with Israel. This would be real Pan-Africanism. 2. An overall race organization can deal with some important problems at home than any smaller independent group can do nationwide. With the people, what the people need is a national defender to further expose and victoriously end the silent war that is quietly being carried on each day against a now helpless people, many of whom are not really aware of its extent. 3. It can carry on a nationwide education program directly into the homes, reversing the, quote, poor and deprived homes, unquote, negative outlook to a positive one. 4. It can oversee the welfare of the race by maintaining a check on the extent blacks are secretly used exclusively as guinea pigs in dangerous experiments by various medical projects. 5. Such a race movement would be superficial indeed if it proceeded without its principal foundation, which is the ownership of vast tracts of farm and timberland in various parts of the country. The current ideological cry of, quote, we must have land, unquote, is valid only if we answer the question, for what purpose must we have land, or to what end? 6. It can have on behalf of the race it represents a central national bank as the people's national depository and central financing agency, a national auditing and accounting service, a general insurance system covering especially those categories where blacks are arbitrarily denied protection or are charged much higher rates than those now paid by whites. Home improvement, building, and small loans could all be handled by community credit unions organized on a somewhat different basis than existing credit unions. For one thing, all community credit unions in various sections of a city would be united as one to reinforce each other's services when needed. 7. It can give hope and a new sense of direction to thousands behind prison walls, and in time practically empty the prisons of those convicted of crimes for which the whites go free. The important thing, however, is that the youth, men, and women coming out of prison would have something to come to, training or retraining for much needed service in helping to build and advance themselves as they build and advance the race. They have never had such an opportunity. And finally, 8. The great change in outlook and the new inspiration that would come to black children and youth are immeasurable. Just to know that their parents are engaged in and actively a part of a great movement would give a new sense of worth and dignity. It would no longer be necessary to shout in unison, "I am somebody." We are great if we are an active part of a great movement. So these are the 8 points that Dr. Amos Wilson makes in regards to Dr. Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization, Chapter 25, Prescriptive Program, The Shape of Things to Come, a Master Plan. Dr. Amos Wilson goes on to say, finally and obviously, none of the above can be achieved on a nationwide scale without a nationwide movement of several million members organized as a race, working as a race for its interests as full-fledged American citizens. Williams proceeds to go much further than outlining what nationwide African American Organization for Black Power can do. He presents a working master plan, i.e., a plan as a focus for discussion, revision, and amendment by which such an organization can be structured, legitimated, and functionally achieve its goals. In the preliminary stages of development, Williams proposes that an organizing committee composed of representatives from exclusively African American national organizations or smaller organizations, lodges, clubs, etc., be instituted for the purpose of studying, revising, and amending the master plan and setting the course for future action. Further developments of a national organizing committee would involve ensuring that its members, including representatives from various sections of the country, are present. After outlining the work of the National Organizing Committee in 11 proposals, Williams very aptly proposes that the master plan, with its revisions and amendments, be considered a tentative proposal until approved by the people. Williams makes the following recommendations with regards to the overall structure of a nationwide Black Power organization. The functioning organization would be under the overall administration of a National Council of Leaders headed by a national chairman following traditional patterns of African councils of elders. Every state, city, or community division would also be organized under the councils of leaders. The organizational structure of the movement should be by major divisions for major activities, each divided into departments for carrying on their respective programs. The structural organization Chancellor Williams suggests includes the following divisions: economic planning and development, political action, public education, community services, youth activities, African affairs, intelligence and security, and the Commission for Spiritual Assistance. The division of economic planning and development is further divided into 7 departments. Williams provides additional ideological suggestions and guidelines for actualizing his master plan for Black Power. These include recommendations having to do with the achievement of organizational unity, financing, and administration. Chancellor Williams recognized that the plan he set forth was rather clearly one way out. However, he also recognizes that any overall plan finally adapted by the black community as a matter of integrity and efficiency must include many of the central recommendations, provisions, and rationales listed. While Chancellor Williams' plan is a grand one in terms of scope and vision as well as detail, and no doubt a bit daunting, it or some similar plan must be actualized if Africans in America are to empower themselves to maximize the extent of their possibilities. A number of prototypical organizations in some areas and divisions proposed by Williams already exist. The invigoration, expansion, and Afrocentralization would do much to move them toward a good fit with Williams' model. For example, local, state, regional, and national associations like the National Association of Black Social Workers, Black MBAs, Black Psychologists, Black Teachers, etc., could expand or reconstruct their present organizations to meet the demands of a Williams-like master plan, or create special divisions within their organization in order to achieve the goals of the divisions of Williams' plan. Ultimately, a national organizing committee or a national council of leaders composed of leaders of such organizations could be created in order to administer and coordinate the activities of its various member organizations. We must again emphasize member organizations should be unequivocally Afrocentric in composition, structure, and purpose. They should avoid, like the plague, the significant influence in or the leadership of their organization by persons tied to the Democratic or the Republican parties, Marxist groups, proselytizing or overzealous religious groups, Eurocentric socialists, and assimilationists. The inclusion of such groups, because of their ambivalent loyalties and conflicting priorities and values, surely will be the death kill of organizations committed to the advancement of African people. The work and goals of a national system of divisions as proposed by Chancellor Williams, or of more specialized organizations of the type we just discussed, should be fortified and supported by open-minded, creative, and productive Afrocentric policy formation and planning networks. This network, as we shall discuss later, would, in basic outline and function, parallel that of the white elite policy formation process, also to be described later. This network, like its white counterparts, must include independent, black-funded foundations, institutions, study or seminar groups in order to develop and provide education and training regimens, research and analytical reports, political and economic development experts and personnel when needed within the African American and Pan-African communities. So, that was my reading from page 52 in Blueprint for Black Power to page 55, The Basis of Power, Organization and Ethnic Resources. And I would hope that this reading would encourage us to really look closer at Dr. Williams' chapter 25 in Destruction of Black Civilization, The Shape of Things to Come, A Master Plan, and to continue the discussion and the buzz around the program that I received yesterday in posting the book as well as that chapter as a separate download. Thank you very much for your attention, brothers and sisters, and have a blessed morning.